Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migo. We are glad that you're still watching KBC Channel 1. Now, today is International HR Day, a day marked every 20th of May. And the idea is to celebrate the impact of HR professionals, not only in Kenya, but also at the global level. And the theme for today is empower people to lead change. So we are going to look at that, leading people through change. And I'll be having that conversation with Irene Kimashia, who is the head of corporate affairs and communication at the Institute of Human Resource Management. Karibu sana.
Asante, thank you for having me.
Karibu sana, and thank you for making time. And also CHRP, David William Ochiel, who is an HR expert. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
How are you doing this morning?
Very okay. Thank you for having me.
Today is International HR Day. I'll start with you, David. What is the importance of celebrating this day? Why do we celebrate it?
Thank you. International HR Day is very important. Mm-hmm. It's normally celebrated on 20th of May every year, basically to recognize the contribution of HR professionals to the people, to the institutions, and to the society. Mm-hmm. Because many times you find when the people are not well treated in an organization, the strategy of organization may not be achieved. Mm-hmm. And more so as we look at the theme of 2026, which is to empower people to lead the change. Mm-hmm. So we find that as HR professionals, it's very important to recognize what they are doing and what they are experiencing in their workplaces, mm-hmm. to ensure that in this digital transformation, the AI era, and in the shifting employee expectation is much recognized, mm-hmm. to ensure things go on in the right direction.
Yes. Irene, from where you stand, why is this day important, especially when it comes to the HR profession?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And let me start by wishing all HR professionals a happy International HR Day, including Mr. Ochelia, who is a member of IHRM.
Yes.
Like you put it, I'm coming from IHRM, which is a professional body of HR practitioners in Kenya.
Yes.
We are looking at over 20,000 HR professionals who are registered with us. So this is an important day, and mm-hmm. it's a global day. It didn't start a long time ago. It started in 2019, just before the COVID era. Mm-hmm. But just to agree with what CHRP Ochiel is saying, beyond recognizing the place of the HR professional, it is also appreciating the role of the HR function in organizations. Mm-hmm. Because the HR function shapes the culture of the organization. The HR function promotes well-being in the organization. It creates diversity. Mm-hmm. So it is to support organizations, appreciate, one, the HR professional as a subject matter expert, mm-hmm. driving strategy in an organization, and also appreciate the place of the HR function in an organization. Mm-hmm. Organizations that are leading change, like the theme says, are having HR sit at the very strategic places in the organization. Mm-hmm. And that is what is making a difference.
Yeah, because when you mention HR, some people think of hiring and firing.
And firing. And we are here to disabuse that notion. I hope we will achieve that.
And, when you talk about leading people through change,
yeah.
David, what is that secret that is there when it comes to leading them through the change that we are talking about?
Thank you. When you look at leading people through change, the main secret is that you must trust people before the transition is made. Mm-hmm. So the HR need to ensure that people trust their leaders before they are led through the process of change. Mm-hmm. Because when people do not trust their leaders, mm-hmm. then they simply don't follow change because there is a circular, there is a law to be followed, but they need to understand why are we changing. Mm-hmm. So leaders need to explain very well to the people the reason why they need the change. Mm-hmm. So when people adopt that kind of understanding, mm-hmm. then they'll be able to ensure that what the change is going to be there is for their good. Mm-hmm. But they also need to know what change will be there, what will change, what will not change, and what will need reskilling for them to adopt the change. That is very important as we get to this section. And then we realize that as an HR professional in the organization, you need to understand that the strategy that you are going to use to make sure that people change is not making people to change themselves. People don't like to be changed, but they want a situation whereby is the change going to be for their good or is not going to be for their good?
Why is it that people always resist change?
People basically don't resist change. They resist being changed.
Oh.
That's what people resist. I would give you an example. When I was working in the Ministry of Lands in the year 2012, we wanted to ensure that we have a digital transformation. So when we went to the database, we found out the people who were able to understand the computer and work with the basic technology were only 2%. So when you want people to change and embrace technology, and only 2% of them are able to do that, then they will not be resisting change, but they'll be resisting being changed. So what we had to do is to ensure that we train people on the basic digital technology. And once they embrace that, they really accepted the change, and that is how we were able to start transforming the Ministry of Lands to ensure that people are able to understand digitization in the Ministry of Lands. So people don't resist change, they resist being changed.
Okay, that's a brilliant way of seeing it from that perspective. Irene, you know, the change we are talking about, from where you stand, what do you think is the secret?
I'm not sure there's a secret, Mike. I just think with change, you have to navigate it. You cannot sit and say, this is the one way to do change. But what is this that we're talking about when we say change? From the HR space, we're talking about a bunny world. We're talking about bunny, B-A-N-I. It's an acronym. We're talking about a brittle environment. For example, look at the global supply chain. What the conversation was just a few minutes ago, the impact of the global crisis in the Middle East and the impact it has on Kenya. So we're in a brittle space. Secondly, we're in an anxious space. We are calling this the anxious generation. You know, the change is so much, you know, we cannot say we are managing it. We're just adapting and navigating the change. And that is where the skills that Mr. Ochele is talking about come in. Are your people having the capacity? Are they resilient to navigate this change? We're talking about non-linear. One small thing has a ripple effect on our organizations, and it's difficult to plan. And finally, incomprehensible. It's almost difficult to understand. How do you explain that somebody who gets a wage for the last 2 days did not manage to go to work, children did not go to school? That is the environment we are operating in. And we're talking about a human being coming with all these changes at a personal level into the workplace. So there is not one secret. We just have to, one, continuously build the skills of our employees so they're able to navigate the change, and number two, humanize the workplace. Ile maneno of wacha shida zako kwa gate, then you come to the workplace, then you will pick them up when you go home. That cannot work in the modern workplace, because I'm a human being, a complex human being. I have feelings, I have challenges. This morning traffic is, you know, yesterday we didn't have traffic, today it's everywhere, you know. So this human being is having challenges with their family or with their health. So you cannot tell them, leave your problems at the gate. It affects their productivity. So how do you create a work environment where there's psychological safety that an employee can say, today I am not well, I need support here. You know, are we building those workplaces? And that is a place of HR. And that is what HR professionals are doing to support organizations navigate change.
Very important. I want to go back to something you said.
Just something to add on that. Care matters when change is happening. As an organization, how are we caring for our people? Because people have fears in between that when it changes, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to be having a very bad condition for work atmosphere? So we must show that we care for them. And that's why the leaders in an organization must make sure that before any change is happening, they are able to be the agents of change. What people see in them, are people seeing are people that are trusted, are people that are caring, are people that are looking for their future. So once people have that confidence in the leader, then they'll be able to really adopt and see how to change, because they know change is good for them. And by the way, change is the only constant thing. So it's because the only constant thing that we must do is only important. The leaders do not use the opportunity to harass people so that they do what is not good for the people. But once people know that you trust them, you care for them, you mean good for them, the change is for their good, and you equip them adequately to be able to fit in the change, then they will definitely rejoice and move with you.
And that is very important, and I think it ties to something you said about people trusting their leaders. My question to that was, how do leaders now ensure that, how is that trust achieved?
Thank you. For trust to be achieved, one of the things the leaders need to know, the leaders need to have emotional intelligence. Are they intelligent enough to know how people feel? Just as my colleague has said, you find this is somebody who has left home. He has a family. He may have an issue in the family. And when he comes to the workplace, all these things are pushing this person down. So when they come to the workplace, how are we able to care for them? Because you realize in our workplaces, that's where you spend most of our life when we are not sleeping. Because you go home at 7, tired and start sleeping. In the morning at 5, you're waking up to go to work. So you find for you to be able to understand where you are working, it must be a situation whereby you rejoice where you're working. So the leaders must learn to speak the truth to the people they lead. They must learn to ensure that before they do any change, they make people learn what they're supposed to do with the change to help them help the organization. And they must be very sure of the vision of the organization. Because if they don't know the vision of the organization, the goals of the organization, then they have no business being there. Because they don't fit as part and parcel of the organization. So leaders must engage the employees to understand the importance of the organization and how it's also working for their good. Because everybody comes that their good, the good of their family may be taken care of, and the good of their country.
Very important, very important. Irene, what is that one change fact that Kenyan employees must accept so that they can survive 2026 going forward?
Going forward. So, thanks, Mike. The World Economic Forum says that 4 in every 10 jobs will need new skills by 2030. We are shy of 4 years to 2030. So the one thing that is going to be a constant change is that we are dealing with a skill-based economy. It's no longer about you went to school, you got this degree, you have worked for this number of years. All those things are important. I'm not disputing that. But what are you able to do? If I give you some work, are you able to complete it? How efficiently are you able to complete that work? Secondly, we are dealing with a global space now. We are seeing a lot of movement from the global north. People coming to set up shop here for businesses. And we're also seeing a lot of locals, Kenyans, working for multinationals, whether it's remotely or even migrating there. So Kenyan workforce has to prepare themselves for the global market. And then the nature of work is shifting. We are now talking about remote work. We are talking about automation of the mundane administrative things. We're talking about technology. So for you to be thriving, for you to be relevant in 2026 and beyond, you have to invest in building your skills. Go to school, yes, get the credentials that you need, but it's competency-based. What are you able to do?
Very important, because the world is changing fast. And now that you're living in the age of AI, you need to know what's happening, get your skills updated to match what is happening within the world. David, when you look at human resource management, are there HR strategies that you would apply in that regard so that we can drive the change that you're talking about?
Thank you, Mike. One important thing as we look at these strategies, we must start with workforce planning. When we plan for a workforce, we must know in the current workforce what skills and competencies do we have. Then we go 5, 10 years down the line. What skills will be required and what skills will be relevant? Then we look at the gap. So once we know what we have today, we know what we need to require in the future. Then we look at the gap. Then that helps us now to know when we are doing recruitment, what do we need to look for? When we are doing promotion, what do we need to look for? When we are doing training, what do we need to look for? And that is critical for any organization, for them to survive. After planning well, then we need to strengthen merit-based recruitment and placement, even promotion. So we need to onboard the right people in the organization. When you onboard the right people, you're able to get the people with the right attitude, that you're able to train them on what you want. So when you train them on your strategies, they'll be able to accept and move forward for the organization. Do they believe in that organization? That is very important. And as they believe in that, then now you need to build a learning strategy. These people that have onboarded, let's say they're just from the university. Somebody has done BCom. You brought them in the studio like this one. But they were not exposed to that. Once they have the right attitude, now you mold them to what you want. That's now where you can, the management training comes in, the supervisory training comes in, and also the soft skills. How do they communicate? How do they interrelate? Because they may be in a situation whereby nobody has given them practical skills, how to relate at the workplaces. And the soft skills are very key to ensure organization moves forward. So once now you train them on what you want, you package them on what you want, then you are building a culture of the organization. What do you want to see in this organization that you're building in? Then from there you need to look at what is the performance level of these people. So performance management, again, you must look at this as a way in which you are able to make people achieve the mandate of the organization, the goals of the organization. And as you look at the performance management level, the key results areas must be well defined, where people are able to sit with their supervisors, they discuss what they want to achieve, then the employee knows how his or her work level is feeding into the organizational long-term goal. I would give you an example of a common saying, that there are two people that when they were building St. Peter's Cathedral long time ago, two people were asked who were doing the mason work, why are you doing the work? One said, I'm doing the work to earn a living. And one of them said, I'm building a cathedral. So as a mason, this person had known that part of what he's doing is to build a great cathedral. And this now motivates somebody to work. So when somebody comes to work, are we able to make sure that their contribution aims to improve in the entire ecosystem? And now as we work today, as we celebrate the HR Day today, when we are doing this, we must look at when I'm doing something in my organization, as Irene is in the Institute of Human Resource, what is the institute doing for that to fit into the Kenyan goal, Kenyan Vision 2030 for development? One of the things you find, the foundations of this is to Kenya should have globally competitive human resource. So as Irene works, he's able to know, I'm building Ochiel, a CHRP, to ensure that his role fits into the the Kenyan market. Then we look at the agenda, Africa Agenda 2063. What does it aim to do? We need a well-trained human resource which are globally competitive. So Irene will be able to do that, fitting my aim into the Kenyan market, into the global market. And that fits again into the SDGs. When we look at labor market, labor practices, we are looking at people who are technology savvy, people who are reformed, and people who can shape the world. So when I'm able to look at my role in organization in terms of performance, how I'm helping our organization, I'm helping the country, I'm helping Africa, and globally, then that motivates somebody to work. And maybe finally on that, I would talk of building succession management and leadership. One of the things that we've lacked so much in our organizations is not empowering the people for leadership. Look at even today in Kenya. Are we sure that we have the third, fourth, fifth people who can lead us in the organization? So when we are the leaders of today, we must prepare people, because our success should be judged by how we mentored people, how we encouraged people, and how we are able to make people do the right thing. I normally sometimes say that when you look at this man who was called Jesus Christ,
yes,
he invested in 12 people. Then he made 3 to be very close to him.
Yes.
Then after that he went back and said, I finished my work. He never came to KBC. But we still have places here today.
Yeah.
Why? He said, I finished the work. What did he do? He invested in the right people by saying, the things you have seen me do, the things you have heard me say, go and do likewise, making disciples. So leaders of today, we must be able to make disciples. And we should be judged by how disciples are capable of doing what we are. That is how great leaders are marked. So when we do succession management, then Irene and I will not have a problem when some people, when they retire, we have to change the locks of the office because they know where to live. They feel the only people who can lead, which is not correct position.
Yeah, the office will collapse.
The office will collapse. So the office cannot collapse. We must train people to show that when we are exiting the service, we are exiting the organization should go to another higher level, even without our own. And maybe finally, in the system that we have today, we must be alive to digital transformation. There's no two way. Today we have the AI, we have data-driven, and we must be able to learn. That means we must have a strategy which is going to ensure we are continuously learning to ensure whatever we do, we are looking at the future. Because if we don't look at the future, we stand the risk of lagging behind and being overtaken by all that we require. And finally, as an HR professional, we must ensure HR must have moved to the strategy of the business. I must know where I'm working. What is the core mandate of the organization? Then as an HR, I get them people that can fit in their strategy, can fit in their goal, so that as an HR professional, I become a business partner. I become a person who is able to make them that the organization can achieve its mandate, provide the service, and not just be a cost center, but a productive center that helps the organization with a vision of looking at how does it fit into the African 2063 agenda and the SDG goals as we celebrate this day for the HR.
Very important, very important. Irene, when it comes to employee confidential information, how do you handle that, especially when transparency is expected?
Okay. Thank you, Mike. I'll piggyback on the conversation about trust. Let's start there, because transparency builds trust. And for you as a leader in an organization, you need to cultivate a workplace that promotes transparency. So how do you do that while still protecting the confidentiality, which is critical, especially in the HR docket? One, you have to segregate who has access to what. Whether you're using a system, whether it is sharing of information, whatever information senior management has, there's a cadre that should not have, so that we have some level of control. Secondly, you aggregate data. You know, you can say 20% of employees want to work remotely. You do not say Mike and Ochiel are the ones pushing for working remotely. So you have to be clever. You collect this information, whether it came from one person, you have to look for a way to package it so that you're protecting the identity of the people who are sharing that information. Even for whistleblowing, you don't want to go sharing information about people. And then thirdly, you have to have clear systems and policies. These ones you can share openly so that somebody knows if you're having a promotion, this is the criteria. These are the requirements that I should have met. This is how the processes are done. If it's a disciplinary issue, these are the stages so that everybody knows that I was treated fairly. The process that Mike went through is the process that David went through. It's a process that Irene will go through. But when you're not clear with systems and policies and processes, then you leave room for abuse and unfair treatment, because depending on the relationship I have with Mike, depending on whether I like David or not, then the approach, because we're human beings, you are open to bias. So you have to have clear policies, you have to have clear processes that are open and known to everybody. Thirdly, which is also linked to leadership and trust building, is being honest. Communicate to people. Tell them, I have up to this information, or we cannot share this kind of information for 1 and 2, 3 things. There are even laws in Kenya, the Data Protection Law of 2019. So you have to safeguard these things. So it's a tricky balance between being open and transparent, communicating with clarity and consistency, building the credibility as a leader so that the people know when Mike says this, he gives me his word, he means it. You know, his word is his bond, and not having room for unfairness, room for individuals making their own judgments. So processes, policies, clarity and consistency, and also anonymity. You know, you can safeguard some of this information and still have transparent processes.
That is very crucial, especially
Maybe just something to add on that. There is usually what we call the need to know principle, which is very critical, that we need to know. That the confidential information should not be shared with should only be shared with the people that have a role to play in it. We don't give it to everybody, because that's why Irene is saying at certain levels, who should get this information at this level, level 2, level 3, so that we ensure that this information can only be handled by a particular team of people. Remember, like now, let's say a country wants to go to war. You can't give information to everybody. We must know who is supposed to make the final decision and who should know what should happen. So in the same way, if we are going to make radical changes in an organization to make sure that we are able to exist in the next 10, 20, 30 years, we must know who should know what kind of information. But I want to say that confidentiality should never be used to hide unfairness. But transparency should never be used to become a public humiliation. It's very important. As we become transparent, we don't humiliate people. Because when you humiliate your staff, then they coil and you don't get the best from them. So again, it boils back to trust. Do the staff trust you? Do they trust the leader? Do they trust the supervisor? So once you do that, whatever you share, it will be used in a way that makes people succeed in life.
Very important, because that brings me to my next question, where how do you keep the human in human resource when systems are shifting, David?
Thank you. We must remember that technology is just a tool. It doesn't have a conscience. So because it doesn't have a conscience, whenever we are working with tools, we must ensure we allow the human conscience to prevail in every circumstance. And as we do that, we must ensure that human oversight remains the core in every organization. We go digital, we have everything, but we ensure that human oversight is still there, so that we don't lose. We normally say that we can use the human intelligence integrated with the AI. So when we integrate human intelligence, it makes things flow much better.
Yes.
Because you find as an HR, when you look at the employee data, how do we handle this? I'm handling medical data. If I go and tell one of the employees, you know, so and so is having this kind of a condition. If we look at this case where HIV was still a stigma in Kenya, then you find when somebody knows that, instead of relating with me as an employee, they'll now stigmatize me. And that will reduce productivity. So we must handle data very carefully so that we don't make people be humiliated with what people know about them. So the human face runs the organization. And that's very important because as we move along, the future of HR is not in human versus digital. It is in the human-led digital transformation.
Augmentation.
Yes. So that it is the human being that have been well-trained, skilled, reskilled, and unlearned to ensure they work up to what is happening. I would give you a good example. If you go to Standard Chartered Bank today, when they wanted people not to be queuing so much, withdraw some little money, then they put a system whereby for you to go and withdraw the money, you can only go 100,000 and above. Any other thing, you must go through the ATM machine.
Yes.
And then they even put the soldiers that are there are trained that when you don't know and you're a professor, they'll guide you. So you see, when you go there, you don't feel embarrassed. You still feel there's a human touch to help you, guide you on the process. So technology must be led by human aspect. So that's how you make the human critical in every organization to make it what it's supposed to be.
And technology can never replace a human critical thinking.
No.
That within that capacity. Irene, when you look at stuff, sometimes the things that happen within an organization regarding change, and there is some level of staff resistance. Is staff resistance a hurdle to be cleared, or a signal to be heard?
Okay, allow me to say something small about the technology and how to make it human. The one thing that technology will not do is read context.
Yes.
Yeah, so a human being is able to tell what is, you know, this thing of body language. Mr. Ochiel here has sat in recruiting panels, and you look at somebody and you're like, this person is not a fit. And you really cannot put a finger on why you feel that they're not the right fit for the organization. So that ability to read context, that ability to make human judgment is something that technology cannot do. And a joke is made that garbage in, garbage out.
Of course.
AI is artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So if your role and your abilities do not require intelligence at the moment, then AI and systems may not be a challenge. That is on a lighter note. Yeah, so the AI, this fear that technology is going to replace human beings is not the case. It's really going to enhance human output, because then you move away from the everyday administrative roles that can be automated, and you get into using your intelligence for creativity and for other things. Now, getting into staff resistance, whether it is a hurdle or a signal, I believe it's a signal. It is feedback. You know, in communication studies, they tell you even silence is feedback. It's communication. When you talk to somebody and they are quiet, they have communicated. They didn't have to open their mouth and say something. If they have not responded, that is clear communication. They do not want to be part of this conversation. So one, it is probably showing you the areas they have not been communicated to clearly. There are things that they are still not clear about with this change that is coming. And that is probably why they're resisting. Mr. Ochiel said people do not resist change. They resist being changed. So number one, is it clear? Do we understand what is being changed? And why is it being changed? What is my place in this change? Will it hurt me, or is it for my benefit? What is my role in the bigger picture? Number two is probably a sign of fear. Yeah, people are afraid about change. What does this mean for me? Will I lose my job? Will I be changed to a different department? Am I capable? The imposter syndrome, or can I do this new role and all that? And then thirdly, it could be a sign of a promise not kept previously. You know, it's an issue of trust. Can I trust that this leader, whatever they are saying, is going to be the truth? If they say that nobody is going to lose their job, are they really being honest? Or something will change along the way? If they say I will not get a pay cut, or if I get a pay cut now, then in future when the business is doing better, then that is going to be reviewed. So is it a promise that has been broken before, whether by this leader or another leader? So it is always a signal, it is feedback. And for the leadership that is leading change, then you should take this as feedback, interrogate it, as opposed to seeing it as indiscipline or, you know, resistance. People don't want to embrace the new way of doing things, and allow them some time also to adjust. Change is not something you wake up in the morning and say, you know, we have changed.
Yes.
Or people will tell you, Mr. Ocheli has experience in HR. It can take 3-5 years to change a culture in an organization, or even to just drive in a new way of doing things, or even the technology he was talking about. To date, we still have Huduma centers, and there are people who are struggling. They have to go to the chief first and to another person before they are sent to the Huduma center. So change is really a journey.
Yeah.
So you have to pace yourself, because it's a marathon, as opposed to, as you know, those short races, so that you allow people to also adjust mentally. And once the adjustment is there mentally, then they're able to embrace the change.
Yes, and you have rightly put it.
Just something small to add on that.
Yes.
Not all resistance is bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes resistance may be revealing some risks that the management did not see. So when we look at resistance, we should look at it from both sides. What is it that we may have learned from people resisting? Just as she's rightfully put it, Irina's rightfully put it, sometimes we find when we were making this change, was it the right time? Was it communicated well? Were people involved? Were people prepared? Were people trained enough to understand what they are changing? What are they standing to gain in that kind of change? So when all those questions are well answered by the management, then you'll find resistance is lessened. So when we see resistance, it's good as leaders, it's good as HR professionals to understand there is something that we need to do much more than what we are seeing.
Yes.
And in an organization, that is the key role of the HR. When people are resisting, are they able to know what are the underlying soft issues that they should be able to tackle? So when they get to learn that, then they'll help organization to move as a team. And that's why sometimes it's good you start with the few change agents who gets the idea. After getting the idea, then they are able now to roll it out to the other team members. Then we are able to roll it to the entire organization. So target a few influential who have the organization goal at heart, and then manage them so that they're able to influence the others. Because when you influence change, it is readily accepted. But when you force change, resistance will be very high.
And how much truth should a leadership share when it comes to, especially during a transition, how much of truth should they share during that time? David.
Okay. When you talk of truth that leaders should share, one thing I would say that leaders should share enough truth to earn the trust.
Enough.
Enough to earn the trust, while respecting confidentiality,
Yes.
the law, the legislation, and personal privacy. That is key. Because when you share what somebody feels that is not be known by the public, then they lose trust in you. And when they lose trust in you and the organization, performance will come down, and the organization will not be able to achieve their objective. Again, you'll find employees need to know what change is happening. What is the expected impact of that change? So once they're able to learn that, then they're able to adjust on what is happening. So we must ensure that as we share the truth, we ensure the trust still is bestowed on the management by the employees. And the worst communication, I would say, for example, is you tell the staff nothing will change. That is not right. Because when you tell them nothing will change, then they see somebody is sacked or somebody is retrenched. Then they take you now as a liar. And then the trust goes. And you realize it may take so long to build trust over the employee, but it takes a second to lose it. So we should try as HR professionals to ensure the trust is built, maintained, and nurtured as we go along. Then silence is not neutral during change. Some people would decide to keep quiet. In a major change time, we cannot afford to keep silent as HR professionals. We need to, because when you keep silent, you're creating a vacuum for grapevine and lies to come in, because anything will fill it. So we need to ensure that we dispel rumors by giving truth in bits. There is something that is very common. Irene and the mothers know. When the child is very young, tell, where did you get the child from? We bought the child. You just give them enough. Why am I saying that? And sometimes you don't give more information before people are able to comprehend. So at the same time, when you also give information to the organization, you look at the kind of people that you have. I have the support staff. I have maybe the managers. I have the top leadership. So what should they know at a particular level? And once you do that, you'll find people will clearly understand and support the organization.
Allow me to end it at that, but I want to give you each 30 seconds, because we are out of time, to give you closing remarks. 30 seconds each. I'll start with you, Irene.
All right. So before my 30 seconds, please just allow me. Human beings do better when you tell them the truth. So the natural instinct is for you to hold on to information, but even as you communicate the truth to the extent that you're able to, also indicate when you are likely to know more information, and then you can communicate that to them. As a closing parting shot, for me, is to emphasize that the HR profession in this country is a regulated profession. That means that there exists a body of knowledge that anybody who is practicing HR needs to have. We have what we are calling CHRP. Mr. Ochiel here is a certified human resource professional. So for employers out there, if you want a HR professional who is going to lead change in your organization, who is going to promote diversity, who is going to help you build a culture that you're going to thrive despite the changes that you're faced in the environment, then you need a competent HR professional. And this HR professional needs to be a member of IHRM. So I welcome each one of them to join us at IHRM and wish all HR professionals a happy International HR Day.
Briefly, David.
Thank you. As we mark this International HR Day, my message is that change should not be something done to people. It should be something done with the people, so that people are involved in it to create that trust. Technology will change, structures will change, and jobs will change. But the need for dignity, the need for trust, the need for learning, the need for fairness in organization, the need for good leadership will never change. So as we go forward, all employers communicate honestly, train deliberately, and lead humanely. To all employees, keep the future of work that needs technology and adapt to the technology, because we need to work with civility, courage, agility, and wisdom.
Thank you so much. The gentleman talking is CHRP David William Ochiel, who is an HR expert, and also been talking to Irene Kimashia, Head of Corporate Affairs and Communication, Institute of Human Resource Management.